So there seems to be this pattern, right? Three main problems keep popping up in disaster situations. They're often called the 3C pitfalls.
That's right. Simple names, but they represent really complex challenges. Communication, coordination, and cooperation.
And when one of these goes wrong?
Well, yeah. If any one of them breaks down, the whole response effort can be weakened, sometimes, critically weakened.
It's clear these aren't just small hiccups. They can really undermine the whole thing. Getting these three elements right, it seems like that's the bedrock of a response that actually works.
Absolutely. When they fail, everything else just gets harder, riskier, and way less effective.
Okay, so let's take the first C, communication. What does failure look like here?
So communication failure. It's basically when people can't share the right information at the right time clearly. Think about timely warnings, accurate updates.
Between who exactly?
Oh, everyone involved. Responders on the scene, different agencies trying to manage things, public health folks, hospitals, and crucially, the public itself.
Right. And what happens when that communication chain breaks?
Well, you get confusion pretty much immediately. Warnings might be late, or maybe they go out, but they're just not clear. People misunderstand them.
Or responders miss vital updates, like roads being blocked or a shelter reaching capacity.
Precisely. Or for healthcare, maybe medical teams get sent somewhere they aren't actually needed most, or, vital supplies end up in the wrong place entirely.
Okay, that sounds bad.
It is. The consequences are serious. It leads to really inefficient use of resources. Imagine, 5 ambulances rushing to one spot because of poor info, while another area with critical needs gets nothing.
Wow.
And it bumps up the risk factor enormously, not just for victims who are waiting, but for the responders, too. Sending medical staff into a situation without the latest safety intel, for example, like an unstable building report they never received.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's communication. What about the second C, coordination? How's that different?
Right. So if communication is about the flow of information, coordination is about orchestrating the actions and the resources, bringing all the different groups together.
Because in a big disaster, you've got loads of different players, right? Police, fire, medical teams, hospitals, maybe even the military, volunteers.
Exactly. Dozens, potentially. And trying to manage all of them so they work together, not, bumping into each other. That's the coordination challenge.
And when that coordination is poor, what does that look like on the ground?
You see duplication, like 2 medical teams setting up right next to each other.
While another area gets missed completely.
That's often what happens, yeah. Neglected areas, resources get wasted, maybe crucial medical gear sits unused because there's no central direction telling people where it's needed most. It can lead to, operational chaos.
And a big reason for this, it seems, is often the lack of a clear command structure.
Yeah.
Like who's actually in charge?
Yes, exactly. Or maybe a structure exists on paper, but the roles aren't clear, or it isn't really followed when things get hectic. Without that unified command, the response just fragments.
So everyone's doing their own thing, trying hard, but
the efforts don't add up effectively. It's like trying to build something complex without a blueprint or a foreman just doesn't work efficiently.
This is where things like the incident command system come in, I suppose.
Absolutely. Frameworks like the incident command system are designed specifically to tackle this. They provide that standardized structure, clear roles, incident commander, operations, logistics, planning, finance.
Roles that can scale up or down depending on the event.
Right. Whether it's a small incident or a massive one, it gives everyone a common language and a clear reporting structure. It directly counters that coordination pitfall.
So having that system understood and practiced before a disaster is key.
Hugely important. It means when things go sideways, people from different organizations can slot into a known system rather than wasting precious time figuring out who does what. That's often a weak point identified in after-action reports, not having that system truly embedded.
Okay. Communication, coordination. What's the third C?
The third C is cooperation.
How is that different from coordination? They sound similar.
They're related, but distinct. Coordination is about the structure, the process, the management. Cooperation is more about the willingness of different organizations to actually work together.
Ah, okay. The human element.
Sort of, yes. It's about sharing information openly, pooling resources, maybe even sharing personnel. It really relies on trust between different groups.
And I imagine trust can be hard to come by in a high-stress, chaotic situation.
It can be very fragile. When cooperation is lacking, you get fragmentation again, but this time it might be driven by, turf wars sometimes.
Really? Like organizations competing.
It can happen, competing for visibility, maybe for funding later on, or just wanting to maintain control over their piece of the puzzle. Sometimes vital information isn't shared, not because the communication lines are down, but because an organization is hesitant to release its data.
Worried about losing control or something.
Could be. Things like patient numbers, injury types, bed availability, sometimes that data gets siloed.
Yeah.
And that lack of sharing, that lack of genuine teamwork, it really slows everything down.
Hinders the whole recovery effort too, I bet.
Definitely. Good cooperation, on the other hand, builds that trust. It creates synergy, where the combined effort is much greater than just adding up the individual parts. It's a force multiplier.
Okay, so communication, coordination, cooperation, these 3 C's, they sound critical. Do we have a real-world example where these breakdowns were really clear?
Yes. Unfortunately, there's a very stark example often cited, the response to the 2010 earthquake in Haiti.
Ah, yes. A massive disaster.
Huge devastation, and the international response was enormous. Aid groups, countries sending teams, pouring in, but it became, tragically, a case study in how failures in these 3 C's can really hamper relief efforts.
So how did communication play out there initially?
It was a major problem right away. You had all these different groups, international NGOs, the Haitian government trying to function, local responders, UN agencies.
All trying to talk to each other.
Exactly. But they struggled immensely. Different radio systems, incompatible equipment, patchy satellite coverage, even language barriers. There wasn't a clear, shared picture of what was happening where.
So if you were, say, a medical team arriving,
you might have had no reliable way to know which areas were hit hardest, where field hospitals were being set up, which roads were even open, or where supplies were needed most.
that sounds incredibly difficult. Wasted time just trying to figure out where to go.
A lot of that, yes. And it meant people in desperate need in certain locations might not have been reached quickly because their situation wasn't effectively communicated up the chain or across agencies.
And I guess that links directly to the coordination problem.
Absolutely. With so many organizations arriving, often with their own plans and ways of doing things, there wasn't an effective single coordinating body directing the overall effort in those critical early days.
It wasn't a lack of people wanting to help then.
No, definitely not. It was more a lack of air traffic control, if you like, someone guiding all the incoming planes to the right gates.
So you ended up with, what, pockets of intense activity?
Right. Multiple groups might converge on one spot, sometimes duplicating efforts like setting up aid distribution points almost side by side.
While other areas got little or nothing.
Exactly. Other hard-hit neighborhoods or more remote areas might have been neglected for days simply because resources weren't being directed strategically across the entire affected area. Medical help became fragmented. Teams didn't know who was covering what or where the biggest gaps were. Patient movement, supplies. It was all very disjointed.
And cooperation, was that also an issue?
It was another hurdle, yes. While most groups genuinely wanted to assist, there was some reluctance sometimes to fully integrate or share everything freely.
Why would that be?
Concerns about maintaining their own organization's identity, maybe fundraising visibility down the line, or sometimes just bureaucratic processes getting in the way. It meant critical data, patient stats, injury patterns, bed capacity in makeshift clinics wasn't always pooled effectively.
So information got stuck in silos.
To some extent, yes. That reluctance to fully share data and resources meant the collective power of the response wasn't fully unleashed. If one group had extra medical supplies but didn't quickly share that info or transfer them to another group that was running low elsewhere, well, the overall effort suffered.
It delayed getting the right help to the right people.
Precisely. Slowed things down considerably.
But the response in Haiti did get better over time, didn't it?
It did, significantly, and that's a crucial point. The improvements largely happened after specific steps were taken to address these very 3C pitfalls.
Ah, okay. So what changed?
Well, as a more functional, unified command structure started to emerge, as communication links improved, partly through establishing common channels and protocols, and as agencies made more deliberate efforts to cooperate, the chaos began to lessen.
Things got more organized.
Yes. Resources started flowing more logically. Information sharing became more reliable. Groups began to leverage each other's capacities better. It demonstrated that while the initial failures had terrible consequences, overcoming these 3Cs is possible and makes a huge difference.
So Pulling this all together, what's the main lesson here, particularly for our listeners in healthcare? Haiti's a massive catastrophe, but these principles must apply elsewhere too.
Absolutely. The core message is that mastering communication, coordination, and cooperation isn't just, nice to have. It's foundational for any effective disaster response, big or small.
When those systems work, clear communication, established coordination, like using incident command system principles, and active cooperation.
The whole operation becomes much smoother, more streamlined. Resources, including medical personnel and supplies, get used efficiently. They get to where they're needed.
And aid reaches people faster. Critical medical care gets delivered sooner.
Which, ultimately, saves more lives. It reduces that overwhelming chaos that can grip a disaster scene. And it helps communities, including the healthcare infrastructure itself, recover more quickly because the response was effective from the start.
So it really highlights the need for preparation before anything happens.
Exactly. Establishing those communication protocols, training on unified command structures, building relationships and agreements for cooperation ahead of time, that's what makes the difference when a crisis actually hits.
It's about having the systems and the relationships ready, so you're not building them from scratch under extreme pressure.
You've got it. You need to know how and with whom you'll communicate, coordinate, and cooperate before you're in the middle of it all.
Makes perfect sense.
So maybe something for you to think about. How do these same principles, communication, coordination, cooperation, play out when managing, say, a major incident within your own hospital, or coordinating care between different ambulance services during a large local emergency, like a major traffic accident or a fire?
Yeah. Definitely. Really powerful insights there. Understanding these 3C pitfalls, communication, coordination, cooperation, it's not just academic. It's about ensuring that when help is needed most, it actually works. It gets there effectively and fast. Keep learning, everyone.